This is Brussels. Or rather, what people imagine if they've never been here. And now, here's the real Brussels. I'm honestly scared to pull out my camera. No idea how to film this. If the police start running somewhere, that's where we have to go. The whole place reeks of urine. Hi everyone, I'm in the political heart of Europe, Brussels. A city drowning in crime, gang turf wars, and literal piles of trash. On one side, you've got the EU and NATO headquarters and constant high-level summits where world politics are decided. On the other side, Brussels can't deal with its own backyard. It's one of the most dangerous capitals in Europe. Local crime is basically as iconic as the mannequin piss. Street gangs settle scores right next to the EU buildings. Heaps of garbage block the view of beautiful Flemish Baroque facades. A third of the city lives below the poverty line, and you can see it in whole districts. In short, it's total chaos. People sell drugs right out in the open. It's wild. One Brussels market just spills into another. A cute, in quotes, little dump here. There was a shootout or something just a moment ago. Something went down, there's police everywhere, lots going on. I don't remember seeing anything like this elsewhere in Europe. And the craziest part? Brussels is technically one of the richest capitals in Europe. Half the residents in some neighborhood feel unsafe just stepping outside. And nothing changes for years. Some areas are practically off limits, that's how dangerous they are. And that's exactly where I'm going today. I'm going to show you the real heart of Europe. So this episode is in a way anatomical. I'm starting my Brussels tour at the most dangerous train station in Europe. Then I'll head to Molenbeek, nicknamed Europe's jihadist hub. After that, the street that's probably the dirtiest in all of Europe. No wonder Brussels is the bureaucratic capital of the EU. I'll also check out the panel housing in Peterbos, a neighborhood taken over by drug dealers a couple of years ago. And I'll stop by the metro station, where a teenager opened fire on locals with a Kalashnikov. If you want to motivate me for this dangerous adventure, you have to hit that like button and check that you're subscribed to my channel. My travel videos come out here. So friends, subscribe so you don't miss the new episodes. And now, let's begin. Welcome to Brussels. Good thing you can't smell this through the screen. It's like one of those old public toilets, the ones no one ever cleaned. This is Brussels Midi, the most dangerous train station in Europe. It used to greet travelers with the sweet smell of Belgian chocolate. Right next to Midi, there used to be the Côte d'Or chocolate factory. In 1996, it was moved elsewhere to make room for the new Eurostar high-speed trains. Now passengers arriving from Amsterdam, London, or Paris are greeted not by chocolate, but by the smell of urine and garbage. Looks okay at first glance. Doesn't even feel particularly sketchy, except it reeks of piss. Someone even rolled up on a scooter, but the stench is strong, seriously strong. The place is gloomy, pretty dirty, not pleasant at all. People just stand around waiting for buses. Maybe one will even show up someday. This station is one of the most crime-ridden spots in Brussels, and not just when it comes to pickpocketing. You can literally lose your life here. Just last year, someone was stabbed to death right at this station. A couple of months later, a man and a woman were gunned down while sitting late at night on the terrace of a nearby cafe. Now, murder isn't exactly an everyday thing here. The most common crimes are theft, extortion, and drug-related stuff. But I happened to be at Midi on a calm day. No stabbings in front of me. And that familiar toilet smell at a Brussels station? Well, that's European stability for you. At some point, I even started counting the number of actual peeing boys around here. So far, everything looks fine. A normal, even relatively clean station, it just stinks of pee. And no, that wasn't rain. For some reason, people come here to relieve themselves. Maybe that problem could be solved by offering free public toilets. Otherwise, the place is relatively tidy. There's even a sign saying you're not supposed to pee here. Doesn't look like anyone reads it. Overall, the smell is nasty, there are a few homeless people, but honestly no more than at any other big station. They say there's a really scary tunnel here. Apparently, that's where the true horror is. And this is why I'm spending so much time at the station. And small spoiler, Midi isn't the only Brussels station I'm going to show you. Train stations are a city's showcase. Your first impression begins right here. But your first impression of Brussels can be a bit extreme. Midi is the second busiest station on weekdays, and on weekends it jumps to number 1. Every Sunday, about 60,000 people pass through here. And they used to log around 10 crimes a day at Midi. That's based on COVID-era numbers from 2018 to 2022, meaning the station was seeing far fewer passengers than usual for much of that time. There aren't any newer or more detailed crime stats for this station, but last year's Belgian police report dedicated an entire chapter to Midi. No numbers, just the note that over 100 officers are stationed here. Let me say that again. In the National Annual Police Report, a single train station gets its own section. That's how serious the problems are. Many people say this is one of the most disgusting spots in Brussels. Now let's head into the tunnel. It's disgusting because it's full of homeless people, drug users, and most importantly, people treat it like a free public toilet. Every time you come through here, you'll see someone, like that guy in the white jacket, just standing there, peeing. It's non-stop. People constantly come here to relieve themselves. You can probably imagine the smell. And by this point in the video, you might think, I'm deliberately hunting down these kinds of places in Brussels, doing everything I can to smear the heart of Europe. And yes, my friends, that's absolutely true. Brussels is an incredibly mixed city. There's stunning Flemish Baroque, sleek business districts, luxury neighborhoods for the wealthy. All of that exists. But I want to show you a Brussels the tour guides won't. The darkest corners of this city. Tourists, locals, and the city authorities have been talking about these problems for years, but nothing gets fixed. Take crime and cleanliness at Midi Station, it's still a mess. City officials keep calling the situation a crisis, a major problem, even a catastrophe. Yet it barely improves. A big part of the issue is that the station sits right where 3 municipalities meet. So everyone keeps passing the responsibility to someone else. 2 years ago, the authorities launched the Midi Plan, a 22-point checklist designed to bring at least some order to the station. They banned drinking, boosted police numbers, forced more patrols, put up security cameras, and closed access to certain platforms. But still, these trains are absolutely filthy. Everything here looks pretty normal. A year ago, after years of promises, they even opened a small police station inside the building. In its very first week, it reported 95 crimes. Locals don't take these measures seriously anymore. They say crime in and around this station has always thrived, and still does. And the authorities are tackling the issue painfully slowly. But station crime is just a small part of the bigger picture. Brussels is a dangerous city overall. The capital accounts for 62% of all pickpocketing in Belgium. And that's nothing. In the first 8 months of 2025, Brussels police recorded 57 shootings. That's a shooting every 4 days. People write that Brussels is Europe's gunshot capital. Its metro area has the second highest murder rate in Europe per 100,000 people, topped only by Latvia. And the numbers for the rest of Belgium are almost twice as low as in Brussels. So yeah, it's dangerous. And my first impressions at Midi were spot on. Really? Of course. So what do you think of this neighborhood?
They say it's the most dangerous, but I live here.
So it's fine? No incidents?
Well, it's not like other areas are totally incident-free, but you can live here.
What could go wrong, right? Anyway, something crazy is happening here. There was either a shooting or I don't even know. They've blocked off the street. Police say it's a crime scene, streets are closed, that's it. I'm heading back through the station now, because the officer said the whole street is shut down. Something definitely went down here. Maybe it was a shooting, I have no idea. And immediately there are drug users all around. This neighborhood is just brutal. I've just arrived at North Station, another station in Brussels. It's close to Midi, where we already were, and supposedly it's not as dangerous. But honestly, the situation right outside this station is way worse than what we saw at Midi. Because here they sell drugs completely in the open. I'm genuinely scared to take out my camera. I have no idea how to film this. There are some vicious-looking guys standing around in groups, in gangs, and I honestly don't know how to record this safely. You might reasonably ask, why can't the Brussels authorities or Belgium in general get a handle on all of this? One answer is that the city's governance system is incredibly messy. Brussels is officially bilingual. French and Dutch are spoken here, and local officials are elected from both language groups. The Brussels regional government has 8 members. A French-speaking prime minister and 4 ministers, 2 from each side. And Brussels has its own parliament too. 17 Dutch-speaking and 72 French-speaking deputies. Elections were held back in June 2024, and the MPs still can't agree and form a government. The French-speaking socialists refused to work with the Dutch nationalists. The Dutch liberals refuse to support any coalition that excludes the nationalists. So in the end, there's no government at all. Meanwhile, tons of problems can't be solved without a functioning government. Infrastructure projects are frozen. Subsidies, for example, for charities are on hold, not to mention the budgets for the police and local authorities. And so, year after year, Belgium's slow, cumbersome democracy just can't keep up with the growing number of problems. Honestly, friends, I have no idea what's going on here. Because this kind of chaos, really, I don't mean to offend anyone. Guys, if you live in Brussels, good for you. But I don't remember seeing anything like this in any other European city. It all reminds me of, I don't know, maybe some American cities where things are completely out of control. But what's happening around the train stations here is genuinely unsettling. At the same time, the station itself, if we're talking about the North Station, is relatively clean. I wonder which of the 2 Brussels stations is better. The Midi station, which still gives me flashbacks of a public bathroom smell but feels safer, or the Northern Station, which is definitely cleaner but where drug dealers openly push their stuff under the whistle of bullets. Friends, which one would you rather end up at? Write in the comments, Midi or North Station? Meanwhile, I'm heading into the city. Let's start getting to know Brussels. We've arrived in a European capital after all. And right outside the station, there's an incredible market. It's amazing, you can buy a down jacket for 30 euros, a sweater for 15. People are actively shopping, and this is all happening right by the station. Who said Europe was expensive? 6 euros for pants, 8 for shorts. Sweaters for 15, cardigans and shirts for 12. You can also buy a scarf here, a pretty one like this. As you can see, they sell really nice clothes here. And to be clear, this market is huge. How long have we been walking already? It just keeps going. Basically, with 100 euros, you can put together a full outfit. And this market isn't just right here. Seriously, whole streets have turned into a market. It's impressive. There's also a police car parked here, apparently keeping an eye on things. So now let's talk a bit about urban planning. After all, we're in a European capital. And here you can't help but notice the beautiful modern trams sitting on these impressive tram tracks. Everything around is covered in trash. And these are the tracks for the trains going from Amsterdam to London, or rather from Amsterdam to Paris. From early morning, Brussels residents come to this market. It's not just a few booths thrown together, it's a massive market right next to the station. It has swallowed up several whole blocks. And I still haven't reached the end. I've been walking quite a while already. They sell clothes here, all kinds of odds and ends. Mostly everything is inexpensive, and honestly, judging by the vibe, probably 80–90% of the shoppers aren't really Brussels locals. Well, at least not third-generation Belgians. And the selection reflects that. Lots of goods from the East, aromatic spices, matching clothing. Basically, you can find everything here. And generally, if you suddenly decide to visit a European capital on a Sunday, you can put together a full outfit right here, so you don't stand out too much among the locals. Clothes, piles of fabric, cheap belts, watches, toys. Look at that guy's hat, that's interesting. But apparently Brussels' main products aren't on these stalls. Drug dealing is everywhere in the city. Those guys over there are selling drugs again. There they are at the end, they're dealing. That one in the yellow jacket. I'm leaving the station now, and here people are saying we should free Palestine and boycott Israel. And up here are all these incredible skyscrapers, an office district. Their whole EU bureaucracy lives in these buildings. But down below, if you look, there are all sorts of people. Drug users, homeless people, shady characters, and right in front of the station entrance, guys are selling drugs again. So friends, I have to apologize, I was wrong. Remember how I said that everyone just goes to one spot and pees right next to the station entrance? Turns out they're peeing in designated spots. It's like, you see, a special outdoor urinal. I thought it's an electrical cabinet and people pee on it. The whole thing still smells awful. They built these things right next to the station, so people wouldn't pee on the walls, but on these boxes. Just so you understand how bad it gets. These open-air urinals even have signposts. See that navigation pole pointing left to where, as it's properly called, the urinoir is located. If you want to pee, don't do it on the walls, go pee over there. And that's exactly what people do. Man, this is a nightmare. It's completely insane. Honestly, life didn't prepare me for this. At first, I thought people were just relieving themselves on random walls, but no. They've been given special cabinets or boxes to do it in. But that doesn't make it any better, because the smell is unbearable. Instead of just building normal, free public toilets, they're doing whatever this is. There's some guy here picking up bits of glass. I have no idea what's going on. Drug users are passing stuff around right at the entrance. The police are here too. Something's cordoned off. There's a huge amount of drugs in Brussels. Even Brussels sewers are basically high. This year, the European Monitoring Center for Drugs tested wastewater in European cities for cocaine, MDMA, ketamine, and other substances. So friends, don't drink water from Brussels fountains or rivers. Brussels ranked 4th among European cities. Only Antwerp, Amsterdam, and the Spanish resort town of Tarragona have higher levels of cocaine in their wastewater. The only difference between Brussels and the top 3 is that Brussels has no direct access to the sea. Most of the drugs coming into Europe arrive by sea. They're brought here to Brussels through Antwerp. That's Belgium's main port, just a short drive from Brussels. Practically all of Europe's cocaine flows through Antwerp. And that's also where the base ingredients for crack come from, the stuff people smoke in the local parks. Dealers sell drugs on the streets here like they're souvenirs. The market is huge, and because of it, there are real turf wars going on, and now a test for the most attentive viewers. Earlier, I mentioned how many shootings there have been in Brussels this year. In case you forgot, let me repeat. In the first 8 months of 2025, there were as many as 57, and all of them were the result of clashes between drug trafficking groups. The authorities themselves are on the verge of joining this war. For example, in early September, Belgium's Home Secretary Bernard Quinten proposed deploying troops to certain areas of Brussels to fight drug dealers. Just think about that. The Home Secretary, talking about his own country, suggested sending the army into the streets of the capital, as if he were talking about some faraway state where cocaine is produced. But for now at least, the Mannequin Peas statue hasn't been surrounded by tanks. The city's mayor, Philippe Clos, rejected the proposal, saying the army wouldn't help. Which raises a question, what would help poor Brussels? By the way, friends, it's not a coincidence that I'm talking about drugs while standing by this canal. It's tied to one of the most dangerous districts in Brussels and in all of Belgium. And funnily enough, that district is famous for something other than drugs. I'm in Molenbeek. This is the jihadist capital of Europe, or at least that's what it was nicknamed after the Paris and Brussels terrorist attacks 10 years ago. In November 2015, 9 terrorists from the so-called Islamic State carried out a coordinated attack on Paris. They detonated a bomb at a football stadium during a match of the French national team, and they shot people at a concert in the Bataclan Theater and at nearby cafes. In 2016, the Islamic State launched another attack, this time here in Brussels. What's more, the Paris and Brussels attacks were connected, in part because the terrorists were locals from Molenbeek. According to some sources, they even discussed their plans in a local cafe called Time Out. 7 out of the 20 terrorists lived here in Molenbeek and prepared for their attacks here. After the attacks, the district was flooded with police and journalists. The police searched for the terrorists and raided their apartments. The journalists tried to figure out how Molenbeek had become a hub of terrorism in Europe. Some locals were extremely unhappy with the sudden attention. Some even attacked journalists. Radicalization among young people was already a major issue in the district, even before the attacks. Youth unemployment in Molenbeek in the mid-2010s was around 40%. That made young people an easy target for recruiters from extremist organizations. Those who joined the Islamic State in Iraq or Syria were reportedly paid around 6,000 euros. 10 years later, the image of Molenbeek has changed slightly. Mosques and schools that were accused of radicalizing teenagers have been shut down. The bar where the terrorists had planned the attack has since become a community center. Something happened, the police showed up. There's something going on. Let's go take a look. Generally, I think that if the police are running somewhere, that's where we need to be. Someone tossed out a fridge and kids are tagging along behind the police. Well, let's be honest, this isn't the most prosperous neighborhood. Molenbeek is a troubled district with a complicated history. It's a perfect example of why urbanism and city planning are necessary. Spoiler, none of that ever happened here. And Molenbeek isn't even some distant suburb of Brussels. Just so you understand, the city center is only 2 metro stops away. Across the canal is the trendy Dansaert district. It was thanks to this canal that Molenbeek once thrived. The canal connects Brussels with the port of Antwerp, the same port through which today's cocaine arrives. But back in the 19th century, coal from the southern regions of Belgium was transported along this canal. Coal shipping pushed the district toward industrialization. Foundries, metalworks, and workshops sprang up along the water. Workers settled here, and Molenbeek was even compared to Manchester. It's like calling a place today a mini Silicon Valley. That's how fast the area was growing a century ago at the cutting edge of the industrial era. But industrialization faded after the First World War. Many factories closed or moved away, and the district began to decline. Workers who lived here moved to the new green neighborhoods of Brussels on the other side of the city. This left Molenbeek with lots of cheap and vacant housing. That's why, in the second half of the 20th century, immigrants began settling here, mostly from Morocco and Turkey. Unfortunately, the district hasn't changed much since then. Nearly a third of its residents live below the poverty line, and around a third of Molenbeek's population is Muslim. Here's something interesting. While we were filming in Molenbeek, I noticed a man following me. He was pretending to talk on the phone, but in reality, he was filming me. I walked around him and he turned to follow me as well. It was obvious he was pointing the camera straight at me. I looked at him. He asked if I had any questions. I asked, "Are you filming me?" He said, "No, I'm not filming you." But it was clear he was tracking me, and he had someone on the line through an earpiece. I realized he was telling them that I was some Russian guy doing something here. I kept walking and he understood that I had noticed him. Then another man joined in. He was well dressed, also holding a phone. And he too pretended to be talking to someone, phone up like this. But I could tell he wasn't talking to anyone. He was filming me, right up close. And it was obvious he was sending it to someone. I still have no idea who they were. Maybe some sort of security for the local drug dealers. It was hard not to notice me in that neighborhood. I stood out a lot. Plus, I was walking around with a camera doing my thing. So maybe some kind of local security group wanted to keep an eye on me and figure out who I was. Maybe they thought I was with the police or something like that. Molenbeek and the areas around it have long had the reputation of being the city's criminal hotspot. But in recent years, that reputation doesn't quite match the numbers. In 2024, crime there dropped sharply. In that respect, Molenbeek now isn't much different from other Brussels districts. In 2020, it had 12,000 crimes per 100,000 residents. Last year, that number was down to just 6,000. And at the same time, the relatively quiet district of Uccle recorded 5,000 crimes in 2024, with a population of only 90,000. So maybe what Molenbeek really needs is better PR. Here's everything you need for life in Brussels. You got groceries, you got clothing shops. And honestly, it's beautiful. You can buy yourself an outfit like this. They even sell Palestinian flags and all kinds of accessories, so you can express your political views. I honestly don't think you'll find this many shops selling luxurious outfits in any other European country. Just look at the robes, the slippers, and by the way, they're just 10 euros. These robes cost only 10 euros each. Look at the golden teapots, coffee pots, trays, lamps. You could turn your apartment into Aladdin's cave. And just to clarify, this is a different area. I'm walking through various parts of the city, but each neighborhood has a huge bazaar like this. So here we are at some sort of square. A wonderful square, actually. Samira, miss. They sell dresses here, just stunning, truly stunning outfits. Luxurious dresses with embroidery, decorations, everything. It's Sunday, and I don't know why, but for some reason, there are lines at the ATMs. This isn't the first one I've seen. There are genuinely dozens of people queued up. People just standing there, waiting for the ATM. Why? No idea. And when I saw a rainbow crosswalk in central Brussels, I wondered, what if they tried that near a mosque? What if they put one in an area where almost all the residents are Muslim, where there's a very high concentration of mosques? And you know what? They did and nothing happened. People walk across it just fine. The rainbow crosswalk doesn't bother anyone. Some people carry rugs. Some are wheeling their kids around. Everything's fine. Everyone's tolerant. And there are migrants here from all over the world, even from Latin America and Russia. Low housing costs, cheap cafes, multicultural life, it all attracts people. And honestly, you won't get bored here. Some Brussels politicians don't sugarcoat things. They call this area a rotten zone. A few years ago, Molenbeek became one of the main battlegrounds for Brussels drug gangs. And it still is. And the cafe behind me, Time Out, wasn't shut down after the terrorist attacks, but because police found illegal substances inside. With that, I say goodbye to Molenbeek and finally shake off my tail. At least I hope no one will follow me in other parts of Brussels. But every district leaves its own impression. Now I've moved to a new neighborhood, Schaerbeek. It's also close to the city center. Here's a cute, in quotation marks, little dump is right here. You don't have to go far. Just take a few steps, just a few, and there's another pile of trash. For example, right here, see? It's clear this place hasn't been cleaned for a while either. These central Brussels streets are not only dangerous, they're also dirty. And here I am, friends, on Rue de Brabant, which regularly appears in rankings of the dirtiest streets in Brussels. For a while, local sanitation workers didn't even collect the garbage here. They were afraid to come here. According to surveys, trash and filth on the streets are among Brussels' biggest problems, something residents complain about constantly. The waste collection system works similarly to New York's. Residents put out bags of sorted trash on the street once or twice a week. The regional cleaning agency, ARP, is responsible for collecting these bags and cleaning the streets in general. But the agency is under constant criticism, and in the past 15 years its budget has increased by a factor of 2.5. Yet the trash hasn't decreased. Residents complain that workers forget to pick up bags and simply ignore the dirtiest areas. Some municipalities even considered fining the agency for doing such a poor job. Then ARP publicly announced that it simply couldn't guarantee the safety of its employees after several attacks on them. So the agency stopped cleaning this district entirely for nearly a month. Later, the municipality hired a private company to do weekly cleanings because ARP still refused to work here. Eventually, after 3 months, ARP and the municipality reached an agreement and the agency returned. They had avoided Rue de Brabant because it sits right next to the local red light district. And this place isn't even remotely tourist-friendly, unlike Amsterdam. Rather, it's simply crawling with all kinds of shady characters. I didn't dare walk there with a camera, but I did drive down the street. Here are a few shady guys in tracksuits sitting in a cafe early in the morning, animatedly discussing something, probably their morning run in the park. And here's a group of young people studying the street's main attraction, the women behind the windows. And here's another group of sporty youths with their coach greeting the morning with a glass of beer. Most of these guys wander around in packs. Maybe even they feel unsafe here. And in 2023, the city authorities started issuing fines for littering. Fines range from $75 to $300 depending on the size of the discarded trash, but people still dump both large and small garbage right in the middle of the streets, and municipal services don't pick it up. As a result, little makeshift dumps pop up randomly all over the city. Since 2013, Brussels has been using an app called Fix My Street, created by the city administration. You can take a photo of a street dump or really any kind of urban mess, attach the location, and cleaning services will see it, and in theory, do something. People on forums say Fix My Street does work, but it takes the city a very long time to process reports. Which isn't surprising. From January to June this year, Brussels residents submitted nearly 14,000 Fix My Street complaints, and most of them were about spontaneous garbage piles. Naturally, many of Brussels' problems are blamed on migrants, and indeed, there are a lot of migrants in Brussels. Almost 40% of its residents don't have Belgian citizenship, though most of them are EU nationals. The largest diaspora communities here are French, Romanian, and Italian. Only after them come people from non-European countries, for example, migrants from Morocco, and people from North Africa and the Middle East often end up right here after arriving in Belgium. This fortress-like building is the Fedacil Arrival Center for migrants. It's the first place refugees go when they come to Belgium. It used to be a barracks, then a prison, then a military site again. And since 1986, it has been a migration center. In 2024, almost 40,000 people applied for asylum in Belgium, the highest figure since 2017, and Fedacil, like the entire Belgian refugee system, is struggling to cope with the influx. On average, asylum applications take around 496 days to process, and 15% of refugees wait over 2 years for a decision. This year, most asylum seekers in Belgium came from Afghanistan, Eritrea, and Palestine. Belgians themselves are convinced that the country can't handle the growing flow of refugees and migrants. Half of the population wants Belgium to completely close its borders to all refugees, regardless of what they're fleeing. Among European countries, only Germany and Hungary show even higher support for completely sealing the borders. Just behind these walls, refugees undergo an initial medical exam and an interview. After that, in theory, they're supposed to be assigned to a shelter, but the process often drags on. Right next to the center runs a canal, and at peak moments, up to 115 tents line the canal, refugees waiting for their intake and placement. For visitors to Brussels, signs in several languages direct you to the nearest toilet, which is quite far away. No 3 minutes, yes, 250 meters. Very convenient. The nearest toilet is in front of the Carrefour Express. The open-door policy toward migrants has led to a political shift to the right, and in Belgium, the face of that shift is the country's new Prime Minister Bart De Wever, leader of the nationalist New Flemish Alliance. De Wever's key campaign promise was to drastically reduce the flow of migrants into the country. So De Wever, who took office in February 2025, has already begun introducing the strictest immigration policies in Belgium's history. New arrivals will no longer be able to receive government benefits during their first 5 years in the country, refugee allowances will be reduced, and permanent residency will be granted only after 5 years of living in Belgium, and only if applicants pass a language exam and have a job. Migrants will be allowed to request family visas only 1 to 2 years after arriving. De Wever is fully committed to tightening Belgium's migration policy, and in the near future, he plans to close several reception centers if the influx of newcomers decreases. Let's keep walking. There are all kinds of places here. You can repair your phone, grab a kebab, smoke a hookah, get a stylish haircut. I noticed these shutters are really popular here. Look, on all the windows, if you glance over there, every ground floor window has heavy shutters or blinds, and they're all closed. Same on the other side of the street. We're moving farther from the station now, and the neighborhood isn't as safe anymore, so people try to protect their windows however they can. Oh, there's the metro station we need. A dangerous station, but there's police there, so don't worry. Behind me is Clemenceau Station. In February, a photo from right here spread all over Belgian media. It shows a teenager in sweatpants walking out of the station early in the morning with a Kalashnikov slung in his hands. He opened fire as he exited. There are still bullet holes in the poles around the station. No one was injured. Were the residents of the Kurigam district, where Clemenceau is located, surprised? No, not at all. Locals say unpleasant things happen here constantly. People openly doing drugs on the street, prostitution and so on. Basically all kinds of criminal activity. The problem is that the station sits right on the border of two municipalities, and neither side wants to take responsibility. After high-profile incidents, police reinforcements flood the area and things calm down for a while. But in that same February, there were 3 shootings here in just 2 weeks. 1 person was killed. So you can't just calmly walk out of the metro. You might end up in the middle of a shootout or simply get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And these aren't terrorists, just local gangs. Residents here clearly have questions about the police. The shooters slip away from the police with ease, and officers can't catch them quickly. They disappear into basements and tunnels under the city, forcing police to go through the underground infrastructure. And around the station, yet another Eastern-style bazaar stretches out. They sell everything here: exotic fruits and vegetables, gold-embroidered suits and robes, even illegal goods. One Brussels market just flows into the next. Perfume, bags. Yes, it's a full-on Middle Eastern bazaar. Prices drop the farther you go. Clothes for 2 euros. The market near the station was the nice one. Here are shoes for 5 or 6 euros. Here, everything starts at a single euro, and the deeper I walk, the cheaper the goods get. This part is the covered market. But again, what they sell here is mostly very cheap stuff. Some bizarre items too. Fish and something else. Manicos, the Lucky Cat figurines. And this is where the scenery gets truly surreal. A little shop called Best Africa Cash and Carry. And you start noticing certain peculiarities here. For example, they offer cigarettes. Real cigarettes. Because right at the market exit, people are selling packs illegally in the open. I don't know where they're getting them from, but based on my experience, they probably come from Eastern Europe. All the off-brand cigarettes are sold completely openly. Those guys, I don't know if you can see them behind me, but they're selling cigarettes. And farther down the streets, you see clusters of shady men in hoodies, each up to something. I'm not sure it's safe to film openly here. I'm drawing attention, but I'll try to walk a bit and show what the area looks like. Some locals looked threatening, so I decided not to wave the camera or anything valuable around. Here's a guy trying to sell me cheap illegal cigarettes. At the station entrance, unfriendly teenagers stand around, all in black, hoods up, you can't even see their faces. And then a straight time machine, a 90s-style street stall mess. And here are some guys in sweatpants and bomber jackets who look like they're desperate to buy something, probably the newest sneaker model. And of course, the soundtrack is the police sirens. Nearby, a bunch of sporty guys stare me down. And the most surprising thing you can find here, amid all this trash, shady people, illegal cigarette and drug sales, is a restaurant with 2 Michelin stars. 10 meters away, they're selling contraband cigarettes, and who knows what else. Shady types hanging around, piles of trash. Well, classic Brussels. And suddenly a 2 Michelin star restaurant. A miracle, really. I wonder who actually comes here. So this is what the area near the station looks like, and honestly, I've seen places like this in many cities. but I don't remember seeing anything like this elsewhere in Europe. In ordinary European cities, sure, not in the capitals because Brussels is essentially the capital of Europe. Here, you step out of the metro and you're immediately surrounded by an unbelievable concentration of shady characters. They try to sell you cigarettes right away, and it's not some rare incident. Everywhere you go, someone is pushing contraband cigarettes at you or something else, drugs or whatever. The whole scene feels, I don't know, more like something you'd see in parts of Africa. This kind of sketchy, chaotic energy, giant markets sprawling everywhere. I thought it was just one market near the station, a couple of streets, that's it. But no, you walk literally 500 meters and another market starts. And that one blends into another. And these aren't the kinds of markets where you can buy fresh oysters, enjoy an assortment of cheeses, or browse the work of local artisans. No, they're proper Eastern bazaars where you can pick up Chinese knockoff goods for a few euros, all these heavy Eastern fragrances, cheap clothes, and so on. Naturally, everything is grimy, it reeks of urine, and a very shady, borderline criminal crowd wanders around. Overall, the whole place feels bizarre. And honestly, even a little frightening to film. Pulling out a camera doesn't feel safe. The entire time I kept seeing security guards, not police, just private security standing around the metro entrance. There were a couple of police cars parked farther away, but they were empty, and you just don't understand. If something happens, where do you run? Who do you complain to? How do you deal with it? I'm at the medieval gate of Brussels, the Porte de Halle. In 1924, there were 3 shootouts a week happening inside and around this park. That's how local drug dealers settled territorial disputes. And just 2 years ago, Porte de Halle Park was the center of Brussels' crack epidemic. This cheap drug was being smoked openly, right on the park benches and in the surrounding alleys. And of course, in the nearest metro station. Locals say there were around 20 crack dealing points within just a kilometer of the park. What's most shocking is that the Palace of Justice is only a few hundred meters away, and even 12 and 13-year-olds were smoking crack. Restaurant managers around the park complained that drug users were robbing their customers daily, and they'd rummage through trash bins, making a mess and creating all kinds of chaos. The park had always been popular with people looking to get high, but back then it was just weed washed down with beer. Now it's crack. The mayor of the municipality where the park is located, Jean Spinet, said the scale of the problem is comparable to the heroin waves of the 1980s. He compared the crack users to zombies. Brussels is considered a green city. 1/5 of it is made up of parks. But in these parks, people aren't jogging, walking their dogs, or just relaxing and enjoying themselves. For marginalized groups, parks are a favorite place to use drugs. They're also popular among the homeless and petty thieves. Locals, on the other hand, tend to avoid them. Many people stay away from green areas precisely because they're afraid of being robbed or attacked by homeless people or drug users. Brussels has a huge homeless population, and that's another sore spot for the city. In 2024, there were 10,000 homeless people here, 25% more than just 2 years before. Around 4,000 of them live in state-run shelters, and the Brussels government keeps trying to show that it's doing something about homelessness on the streets. Since 2019, the budget for tackling the problem has nearly doubled, up to 73 million euros. The money goes toward creating new shelters and emergency housing, offering hot meals at various points around the city, and providing medical and other support for people without a home. After yet another murder near the park, local authorities designated the area around the gate as a drug trafficking hotspot, requiring increased surveillance. They boosted the number of officers and patrols. Several police raids followed, and around 1.5 kilos of hard drugs, firearms, and nearly 100,000 euros in cash were seized from a dealer operating near the park. And now the park looks fairly decent. There's only one tent left with a couple of shady-looking guys. So let's keep exploring Brussels. We'll cross the road using the rainbow crosswalk. I wonder if that scares off drug dealers. Overall, the area really looks like one of typical Soviet residential suburbs. Big concrete blocks, kids kicking a football around. People heading home after a match? These are the buildings. Open trash bins. The whole place doesn't look very European, especially when you remember that we're in a European capital. Here's a mural. And what are these concrete blocks? This is Pieterbos in Anderlecht district, basically the outskirts of Brussels. These buildings were put up in the 1970s. Today, this is the largest social housing complex in Brussels, home to around 4,000 people. And this area, as you can probably guess, is far from prosperous. In some parts, when you walk around, you find yourself in really unpleasant corners. Someone apparently lives here. Pieterbos is another drug hotspot, as referred to by Brussels police. In February this year, a 54-year-old man was shot dead here, another casualty of a drug-related conflict. Law enforcement says the local gangs are tied to the Albanian and Moroccan mafias, as well as criminal groups from Marseille. In short, international crime is thriving among these concrete apartment blocks. So now we'll walk around and see what things look like today. Everything changes fast here, and hopefully this little tour ends safely for me. What's interesting about this area, friends, is that some of these buildings are actually being renovated. Apparently, local authorities decided that if they improve the architecture of these bleak concrete blocks, the area might become safer and nicer to look at. Well, they definitely look nicer. Whether they've become safer is still an open question. Back in June, police carried out a full-scale operation here involving 800 officers and a helicopter. After that, security forces put the entire district under tight surveillance with daily patrols, searches and ID checks, but Pieterbos residents are used to this kind of thing. 4 years ago, in 2021, police had already conducted hundreds of operations here, mostly drug-related. It didn't help. Last year, local gangs practically took control of the area. They even started checking people's IDs themselves and blocked the entrances and exits to the neighborhood. And here you can see it. This is one of the old concrete blocks, looking as gloomy and depressing as ever. And over here is one that's been renovated. They're cladding the buildings, adding interesting balconies. There's a major renovation going on right now. They're replacing the pipes, redoing the facades. And this building here has also been covered in metal panels with these oddly shaped balconies. Every resident got special foil-like curtains. I'm not even sure what to call them. And the building now looks completely silver. Pretty cool. You look at it and it feels clean and tidy, mostly because everyone has the same curtains. They're metallic, almost like they're covered in aluminum foil. On the side facing the street, it looks really striking. Brussels is getting prettier, friends. I don't know who the mayor is here, but the city is definitely getting a facelift. Especially these crime-ridden districts. It'll be interesting later to look at the statistics and see whether this urbanist makeover actually helps. Will building restoration help? Meanwhile, evening was settling over Brussels. As soon as the streetlights came on, my survival instinct kicked in. It was time to wrap up filming. But either I had wandered into a decent neighborhood, or it was just the magic of the night. I've actually started to like Brussels. To be fair, friends, the city isn't all dirty. There are some beautiful, relatively clean areas. Now we'll take a little run through them, so you leave with a good impression of this wonderful city. A local resident apparently thought we were worried about all the trash bags and mess around here. He told us that it'll all be picked up tomorrow. This system of leaving garbage in bags right on the sidewalks is kind of odd. I get it in New York. That's just how things evolved historically. They never had designated trash bins. They never set them up. But Brussels is, after all, a typical European city. You'd think they could have provided proper bins. Walking around with these massive garbage bags everywhere, sometimes torn, sometimes spilling, it's really unpleasant. Strange choice, honestly, I don't get it. In the city center, things are cleaner. There's proper urban planning here, and everything looks nice. But on the flip side, there are far more homeless people. Interestingly, even around train stations, there weren't many. But they're there in the city center. And they're not hiding in basements or dark alleys. They're practically sleeping in the open, even in well-lit passages. Still, overall, the city center is quite pleasant, very European. Beautiful architecture, lots of tourists. It's definitely much better than some other areas. Well, friends, that's all from me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I post a new video every week from some amazing place. With that, I'll say goodbye. Take care and see you next week.